Some stars spend years building the image of being charming, lovable, and unforgettable. But behind the cameras and flashing lights, the truth was often far darker. From cold public encounters to shocking displays of arrogance, several of Hollywood's most legendary actors developed reputations for treating their own fans with surprising hostility. These were the very people who helped turn them into icons, yet many admirers walked away disappointed after meeting them in real life. Today, we're uncovering 13 classic Hollywood stars whose off-screen behavior left fans stunned. And trust me, some of these stories completely changed the way audiences viewed these legendary celebrities forever. Number 1. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is widely remembered as one of the most influential actors in Hollywood history. With films like The Godfather and A Streetcar Named Desire, he transformed modern acting through a style that felt raw, emotional, and completely authentic. Audiences admired him not only for his talent, but for the intense realism he brought to every performance. On screen, Brando appeared mysterious, powerful, and deeply intelligent. But away from the cameras, many fans encountered a far colder reality. Unlike celebrities who embraced admiration from the public, Brando often seemed uncomfortable with the idea of fame itself. He viewed celebrity culture as artificial and frequently questioned why ordinary people became emotionally attached to actors they had never truly met. While some stars politely avoided attention, Brando approached fan interactions in a way that many found unsettling. Admirers who approached him for autographs were sometimes met with silence, dismissive comments, or unexpected questions that turned simple encounters into uncomfortable moments. Rather than appreciating the excitement of his supporters, Brando often challenged it directly. In several public appearances, he appeared irritated by crowds and visibly frustrated by constant attention. To him, fame was less a privilege and more a burden that followed him everywhere. This attitude created a sharp contrast between the charismatic figures he portrayed on screen and the distant personality many witnessed in real life. What made this contradiction even more striking was the fact that Brando still benefited enormously from the very fame he criticized. He commanded record-breaking salaries, lived a life of extraordinary luxury, and remained one of Hollywood's most desired actors for decades. Yet despite relying on public admiration to sustain his legendary status, he rarely showed warmth toward the audience that helped build his career. Number 2. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen earned the nickname the King of Cool for a reason. During the 1960s and 70s, he became one of Hollywood's biggest stars, admired for his effortless confidence, rebellious attitude, and quiet intensity. Films like Bullitt and The Great Escape turned him into a symbol of independence and masculine charisma. Audiences were drawn to the idea that McQueen was different from traditional movie stars. He appeared authentic, fearless, and completely uninterested in pleasing Hollywood. But away from the screen, that same attitude often created difficult experiences for the people who admired him most, unlike celebrities who enjoyed public attention. McQueen guarded his privacy intensely. Fans who approached him expecting warmth or appreciation were often met with cold reactions, short answers, or complete dismissal. Autograph requests were frequently ignored, and in some encounters, witnesses described him as visibly irritated by the presence of admirers. Rather than seeing fan attention as part of stardom, McQueen often treated it as an invasion of personal space. Part of this behavior came from a deep distrust of fame and public attention. McQueen spent much of his life trying to maintain control over his image, and he disliked feeling observed outside of his professional work. However, this desire for distance also created a reputation for arrogance. Many supporters who idolized him left encounters feeling disappointed, surprised by how different the real man seemed from the cool and confident hero they had imagined. What made the situation more complicated was the fact that McQueen's detached personality actually strengthened his public image. His refusal to behave like a traditional celebrity made him appear even more mysterious and rebellious. To many fans, his coldness felt consistent with the tough characters he played on screen. Instead of damaging his reputation, it became part of the legend surrounding him. Number 3. Katherine Hepburn. Katherine Hepburn was celebrated as one of the most respected and independent actresses in Hollywood history. Known for films like The Philadelphia Story and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, she built a reputation for intelligence, confidence, and refusing to conform to the expectations placed on female stars of her era. Audiences admired her strong personality and admired the way she carried herself with complete self-assurance. But while Hepburn earned praise for her honesty and individuality, many fans discovered that her off-screen attitude could feel surprisingly cold and unwelcoming, unlike celebrities who carefully maintained a friendly public image. Hepburn believed that acting was simply a profession, not a personal relationship with the audience. Once she stepped away from the camera, she felt no obligation to entertain strangers or satisfy public expectations. Fans who approached her in public often encountered brief responses, visible irritation, or complete indifference. To Hepburn, privacy and independence mattered far more than celebrity charm. Her dislike of publicity became well known throughout Hollywood. She avoided unnecessary interviews, disliked staged appearances, and had little patience for photographers who followed her outside of work. In several public situations, she reportedly reacted sharply when she felt her personal space was being invaded. While some people respected her refusal to play the traditional Hollywood publicity game, others believed her behavior crossed the line into arrogance and emotional distance. Part of what made Hepburn so fascinating was that she never seemed interested in changing herself to satisfy public opinion. At a time when many stars carefully protected their image through charm and accessibility, she remained unapologetically direct. Number 4. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was more than just an entertainer. He became one of the most powerful and recognizable figures in American popular culture. With films like From Here to Eternity and a music career that dominated for decades, Sinatra built an image defined by confidence, sophistication, and control. Fans around the world admired his smooth voice, charismatic presence, and larger-than-life personality. During the early years of his career, he thrived on public attention, attracting enormous crowds and intense devotion from admirers. But as his fame continued to grow, his relationship with the public became far more complicated, unlike celebrities who welcomed constant admiration. Sinatra gradually developed a reputation for being unpredictable and difficult during fan encounters. While he could sometimes appear charming and generous, there were also moments when he reacted with visible irritation toward people approaching him in public. Fans seeking a quick autograph or brief interaction were occasionally met with harsh words, cold stares, or immediate dismissal. Those close to Sinatra often described him as a man who valued respect above everything else, and he had little patience for anyone he believed crossed personal boundaries. His intense personality only added to the tension surrounding his public image. Sinatra carried himself with authority and expected control over every environment he entered. In crowded public situations, security teams were often used to create distance between him and large groups of admirers. Rather than softening his image, this separation made him appear even more powerful and untouchable. For many fans, Sinatra's intimidating presence became part of the fascination surrounding him. Number 5. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart became one of the defining faces of classic Hollywood through his tough, cynical, and deeply charismatic screen presence. Films like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon transformed him into an international icon, admired for portraying men who appeared fearless, intelligent, and emotionally guarded. Audiences connected with his sharp dialogue and quiet confidence, believing the man behind the camera possessed the same honesty and strength as the characters he played. In many ways, they were correct. Off-screen, Bogart's personality closely mirrored his public image, though not always in ways fans expected, unlike stars who carefully maintained a warm relationship with admirers. Bogart had little interest in the social side of celebrity culture. He believed his responsibility to the audience ended with delivering strong performances on screen. Beyond that, he saw no reason to constantly entertain strangers or perform friendliness in public. Fans who approached him expecting charm were often met with sarcasm, blunt remarks, or obvious impatience. Rather than hiding his irritation, Bogart frequently allowed his dry wit and cynical personality to show openly. Part of this attitude came from his belief that excessive celebrity worship was unnecessary and unrealistic. Bogart disliked the idea of being treated as larger than life and often viewed fan obsession with skepticism. In public encounters, he sometimes responded in ways that made admirers feel embarrassed for approaching him in the first place. While some people interpreted this behavior as authenticity, others considered it dismissive and unnecessarily harsh. At the same time, Bogart's cold and straightforward personality actually strengthened his image in Hollywood. His refusal to behave like a polished public figure made him seem more genuine compared to many carefully managed celebrities of the era. Number 6. Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball became one of television's most beloved entertainers through her unforgettable role in I Love Lucy. Her comedic timing, energetic personality, and playful expressions turned her into a household name admired by millions around the world. Audiences saw her as warm, funny, and endlessly charming, creating the impression that the woman behind the camera was just as cheerful as the character she portrayed on screen. But in real life, Lucille Ball was far more serious, disciplined, and emotionally guarded than many fans expected. Away from television studios, Ball focused intensely on professionalism and control. As the head of Desilu Productions, she operated in an industry dominated by powerful executives and constantly fought to maintain authority over her work. This pressure shaped her personality outside of acting, making her highly organized, demanding, and often impatient with interruptions. Fans who approached her expecting the playful humor of Lucy Ricardo frequently encountered a much colder and more reserved individual. Unlike celebrities who enjoyed constant interaction with admirers, Ball preferred to separate her personal identity from the characters audiences loved. She reportedly became frustrated when strangers assumed she would behave exactly like her television persona in everyday life. Public encounters sometimes ended with brief responses, visible annoyance, or complete emotional distance. To Lucille Ball, being treated like a fictional character rather than a real person was something she deeply disliked. Part of this behavior also reflected the enormous pressure of maintaining one of the biggest careers in entertainment. Ball spent years balancing acting, business leadership, and public expectations, leaving little patience for situations she considered intrusive or disrespectful. Number 7. Richard Burton. Richard Burton rose to fame as one of the most powerful voices in classical and modern acting. With his deep voice, commanding presence, and Shakespearean training, he was widely respected for performances in films like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And stage productions that showcased his intense emotional range. Audiences admired him not only for his talent but also for his intellectual aura, believing he represented a more serious, artistic side of Hollywood. However, his relationship with fame and fans was far from simple, and often left people surprised by his detached attitude in real life. Burton frequently expressed a sense of distance from mainstream celebrity culture. Coming from a classical theater background, he often saw film stardom as less meaningful than stage acting, which shaped how he viewed public attention. Because of this mindset, he did not always respond warmly to fan admiration. Instead of embracing constant praise, he sometimes appeared uncomfortable with the idea of being idolized by audiences who, in his view, did not fully understand the depth of serious acting. When approached in public, Burton was known for being sharp, direct, and sometimes emotionally distant. Rather than offering long interactions or friendly gestures, he often responded with brief remarks or intellectual comments that made conversations feel formal rather than warm. Fans expecting charm and accessibility were sometimes left confused by his reserved and analytical tone. To him, celebrity admiration often felt more like noise than genuine understanding. His fame also reached extreme levels due to his highly publicized relationship with Elizabeth Taylor, which placed him under constant global attention. Instead of increasing his comfort with public life, this attention seemed to deepen his frustration with fame. Number 8. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo is one of the most mysterious and legendary figures in Hollywood history. At the peak of her career, she became a global icon through classic films like Camille and Ninotchka, where her unique screen presence, emotional depth, and silent intensity made her stand out from every other star of her era. Audiences around the world were fascinated by her beauty and her almost hypnotic acting style. She was admired, idolized, and constantly followed by the public. But unlike most celebrities of her time, Garbo never embraced fame in the traditional way. From the very beginning of her career, she treated attention as something she wanted to avoid rather than enjoy. While studios tried to promote her as a glamorous star, Garbo consistently pushed back against publicity. She avoided interviews, refused unnecessary public appearances, and rarely allowed her private life to become part of her public image. Even at the height of her fame, she maintained a strict boundary between herself and the audience that admired her. For fans who hoped to see a friendly, approachable star, encounters with Garbo were often disappointing. She was known for her silence in public situations, sometimes walking past admirers without acknowledging them at all. Autograph requests were frequently ignored, and she almost never engaged in casual conversation with strangers. To many people, this behavior felt cold or distant, but to Garbo, it was simply a way of protecting her privacy. Unlike other celebrities who built their careers on constant interaction with the public, Garbo believed that mystery was an essential part of her identity. She famously valued solitude and often retreated from Hollywood life even when she was at the height of her success. This refusal to participate in traditional celebrity culture made her even more fascinating to audiences, but it also created a growing emotional gap between her and the fans who admired her deeply. Number 9. W. C. Fields. W. C. Fields was one of early Hollywood's most recognizable comedic personalities, known for his sharp wit, cynical humor, and unforgettable screen presence. Through films like It's a Gift and The Bank Dick, he built a reputation for playing sarcastic, grumpy, and often dishonest characters who mocked society with effortless confidence. Audiences loved his humor on screen, believing it was simply an act crafted for entertainment. But in reality, Fields carried much of that same attitude into his real life, creating a reputation that often surprised and unsettled the people who met him. Unlike many actors who carefully separated their public persona from their private behavior, Fields seemed to blur the line completely. Fans who approached him expecting charm or friendliness were often met with sarcasm, blunt remarks, or a complete lack of interest. He did not appear to enjoy the social expectations that came with fame, especially the idea that celebrities should always be approachable or polite. Instead, he often treated fan interactions as interruptions rather than moments of appreciation. Fields' personality was deeply shaped by his cynical view of society. He often saw human behavior as absurd and found humor in mocking social norms, both on and off screen. This outlook made his comedy unique, but it also influenced how he treated the public. Admirers who expected warmth from a beloved entertainer were sometimes taken aback by his cold or dismissive reactions. To Fields, fame did not come with an obligation to constantly perform kindness in real life. Despite this, his harsh personality never fully damaged his career. In fact, it became part of his identity. Audiences recognized that his real-life demeanor mirrored the characters he played, which made his performances feel even more authentic. Number 10. Wallace Beery. Wallace Beery was one of Hollywood's biggest box office stars during the 1930s and early 1940s. Known for his rugged charm and tough but likable screen presence, he appeared in major hits like The Champ, where he played emotionally complex characters that audiences deeply connected with. On screen, Beery often came across as rough on the outside but soft at heart, a combination that made him incredibly popular with fans around the world. However, the reality of his off-screen personality often stood in sharp contrast to the characters he portrayed. In real life, Beery had a reputation for being blunt, impatient, and often unfriendly toward public attention. While his fame brought him constant admiration, he did not always respond to it with warmth. Fans who approached him expecting the kindness seen in his films were sometimes met with cold reactions, short answers, or clear signs of irritation. To many observers, it seemed as though he viewed fan interactions as interruptions rather than meaningful moments. Unlike actors who carefully managed their public image, Beery made little effort to hide his frustration with fame. He was known for being straightforward and unfiltered, especially in situations where he felt his privacy was being invaded. This attitude created a noticeable gap between his on-screen personality and his real-life behavior, leading some fans to feel disappointed after meeting him in person. Despite this, Beery's popularity remained strong throughout his career. Audiences continued to admire his acting talent and his ability to bring emotional weight to his roles. Even when stories of his difficult personality circulated, they rarely overshadowed his success in Hollywood. Instead, they added another layer to his public image, making him seem more unpredictable and complex. Number 11. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was one of Hollywood's most powerful and fearless performers, known for her intense acting style and unforgettable roles in classics like Jezebel and All About Eve. She built her career on strong, emotionally complex characters and refused to fit into the soft, predictable image expected from many actresses of her time. Audiences admired her honesty on screen and her refusal to compromise her artistic vision. But off-screen, Davis also had a reputation for being direct, firm, and at times difficult when it came to public attention. Unlike many stars who carefully maintained a friendly relationship with fans, Davis believed in strict boundaries between her personal life and her career. She did not see fame as an invitation to constant accessibility. Instead, she treated acting as a professional craft rather than a public performance of personality. Because of this mindset, she often avoided unnecessary interaction with admirers and had little patience for situations that interrupted her privacy. Fans who expected warmth and familiarity were sometimes surprised by her serious and no-nonsense attitude. In public, she could appear distant or reserved, especially when approached without warning. While she did not necessarily show open hostility, her responses were often brief and firm, making it clear that she did not appreciate being treated as a public object of constant attention. To Davis, respect and boundaries mattered more than maintaining a friendly public image. Her strong personality also came from her determination to be taken seriously in a male-dominated industry. She fought hard for better roles, creative control, and artistic respect, which shaped how she handled fame outside of acting. This professional intensity sometimes carried over into her public interactions, where she preferred control and privacy over casual engagement.